listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm so excited that you're joining Second Wind today. You know, Second Wind is all about those transitions that we go through. Some of them are happy ones, some of them are more difficult than we thought, but they are all part of life. One of the things that I find so wonderful by doing this podcast is that I think one of the most important things you need in transition is support. And that is what we're here to find through excellent guests that give and share their transitions, whatever they are, with us so that we can build something. We can start communicating and knowing there are other people that have accomplished many awesome things. So what I want to talk to you about today is going to be with Miss Ann Clark. Now, she is a PhD and RN. Now, Ann retired early from an academic and research career, most recently at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, to go into private practice. Her main focus is stress management and spiritual health. She holds a PhD from the University of Chicago and the following certificates: Hypnotherapy, Association of Clinical Hypnosis, Past Life Regression, Brian Weiss Institute, Weiss, you say Weiss or Weiss? Weiss. Yeah. Life Between Lives, Micheal Newton Institute. She is trained in Therapeutic touch and is a Reiki master. She is currently the director of research for the Micheal Newton Institute. Ann, thank you for being here today.
Just one correction. I did retire from the research position at the Newton Institute.
You did retire?
I did.
Yes. Did I leave that word out? I'm sorry. Well, you've got plenty of jobs going here, so I think that's you're not finding any extra time. But it was so interesting to me, all of the things, and you know, we talk about how transitions come along in our lives, and one of the things we're going to talk about today is loss. We all experience loss at some time in our lives. I know the loss of your daughter was a very painful time for you, as all parents can relate to that. But before we get into that, we really picked that the loss, we would view it loss, but you view it, from the perspective of the soul. And honestly, I've not really talked much about the soul. So that's why I'm so excited that you're going to be on to share that information with us today. But by sharing from the soul, you have the opportunity to grow spiritually and connect with our inner guidance. This is a gift that allows us to live a happier and more fulfilled life in the future. So early on in your nursing career, and how many years were you actually practicing nursing?
Well, I probably only actively practiced for 2 or 3 years, then went into nursing education and research.
Oh, okay.
But during that time, I ended up developing a private practice in therapeutic touch and Reiki. So I did practice some while I was also teaching and doing research.
Yeah. Can you familiarize us with Micheal Newton a bit? You spent
Yes.
with his
Micheal Newton did some groundbreaking work. He was a clinical psychologist, and he had a patient that was just very, very lonely. And so one of the techniques that he used was to ask her during a hypnotic trance to
Mhm.
go back to the origin of this loneliness. And much to his surprise, she didn't go back to something in this life. She went back to something not only in a past life, but back to the spirit world. And to make a long story short, the reason she was feeling so lonely is this time she had incarnated, that is, been born on earth, without any of her soul family from the other side. And she was very lonely,
Mhm.
that soul family. Now, Michael Newton did not really believe in things like that, past lives or anything like that. He was very skeptical, but this tweaked his curiosity and he went on to study this further. And he ended up discovering many things about the afterlife. His basic discovery was that we are souls who come to earth to incarnate in a human body. So we're not humans who have a soul, we're souls who have a human body and live a life here on earth.
Hmm.
And we come here to learn, to grow, and also to have a good time while we're here.
Yeah. So, the question I'm saying, what does this, is the soul a spirit? Is it, how could you describe or put a name description to what a soul is?
The soul is pure energy. It's an essence, it's an intelligence. It's part of all that there is. We're all one.
Mm. And when do we, if we come and we're in our soul, when do we, or we come as a soul, when do we choose our body, or do we choose our body?
We do choose our body. That is one of the choices we make. Before we come to earth each time, we have a selection process. We're helped in this by our soul family, our guides, angels, and wise beings on the other side. They help us choose exactly the life we wanted to come into. We choose our body, we choose our family, we choose our location, all for the benefit of learning the lessons and growing spiritually in the way we want to grow. The average person who comes to see me for a past life regression has lived between 700 and 1,000 lives previously.
Lives?
Yes.
Ah.
Some of them going back to very ancient times. Now, there certainly are individuals who have only lived 2 or 3 lives on earth, but the average is over 700.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe in the past life regression, would they have, do you have to have multiple visits? I mean, to me, I'm kind of like overwhelmed with the thought of that many past lives. So how do you pull those out or
Well, one of
entice
the
those
things
out
that
of the
we do,
memory?
with past life regression, it's done under hypnotic trance.
Okay.
What I do is I guide the person to relax, and then I guide them into a light hypnotic trance. The best memories are just right under waking consciousness. And then I guide them back to one or more of their past lives on earth. Now, the way those are selected by the person's unconscious is a life or lives in the past that has great relevance to what they're trying to learn or accomplish in this life. And so after we've reviewed that life and found out who they were and what they did in that past life, one of the questions I ask is, why was this particular life relevant to your life now? What did your unconscious want to show you or tell you about your current life?
Right. Oh my goodness. And I, that's a I'm like, if you have 700 lives, past lives.
But there are probably only a few that are relevant to this particular lifetime.
Oh, okay.
You probably learned other things, did other things in other lives and maybe have already accomplished what you hope to there. But this will pull out the lives that are relevant to what you want to accomplish and to learn or go through in this lifetime.
So choosing a life that they want to be part of, they don't see the transitions they'll go through. How do they choose which life they want to
Well, what we
live?
do when we're in the spirit world and we're thinking about coming back to earth again is in working with our guides and wise beings in our soul family, we figure out what it is that we still haven't learned or mastered previously.
Oh.
And we come up with some goals, some objectives, some things we want to learn or want to experience. And then by working with other wise beings that specialize in helping us choose a life, we look at the location on earth that we want to come to, perhaps the gender, the ethnicity that we want to be. We choose a body, we choose a family, we choose a time period.
You know, I've heard people say, I'm not at all like the people I'm with, you know, my earth family, my family that I'm with. How did I get with them? I don't even fit. So you're saying that was a choice?
Yes.
Because not that we could see the benefit of being there. We cannot see the benefit of being in that family, can we?
We
Or
don't know
yes.
that exactly, because when we come to earth, we have free will. And,
Okay.
you know, no one knows exactly how any one of us will use that free will. However, we choose a circumstance and a situation that is most likely to provide us with the experiences that we hope to have.
Yeah. I wanted to talk just a little bit about your loss of your daughter. That was just tragic.
Yes, it
Tell
was.
us about that transition, if you don't mind.
Yes, it was a tragic experience. It really was. Let me start out by making a little transition from what we were just talking about. One of the experiences that we come to earth to have is that of loss, because we don't experience that when we're on the other side in our true home. Everything there is harmonious, loving. We don't experience loss or the painful emotions that go along with loss.
Now, can I just say, I would think of that as heaven from my Christian background. So is that a heaven that you're speaking of?
It is yes, you could say that. That's where we go in between lives. It's very loving, harmonious. It's a wonderful place to be. We don't just have eternal rest, though, there. We have very active lives. We continue learning, growing. We have jobs. We have leisure activities. We continue learning.
Oh.
Very active life.
Yeah.
For those of you who are interested in learning more about the afterlife, I would recommend the Newton Institute books. The first is Journey of Souls. The second is Destiny of Souls. And the third in that series is Wisdom of Souls. And there's also a book entitled Memories of the Afterlife.
Well, yes. Yes. I want to read those books. Yes. My example, loss has been more apparent in my life in the last year and a half. And so I'm in the over 60 age limit. So of course we have lots of losses here.
Yes.
And so, friends leave or they relocate and we grieve for all of those when we lose our friends that are here. But I think my loss has been easier understood sometimes because of where I am in my age. When I was younger, I looked at loss as just horrible. But as I'm getting older, there's a transition that's happening. Yes, I'm sad when my friends leave, but it's not the fear that I once had about that loss. Is that normal?
Yes, I think that comes with maturity and life experience.
Okay.
And I will also say that through my experience of losing my daughter, I learned that there are different levels of loss. I had experienced other losses in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I had lost my mother.
Mm-hmm.
I had lost my brother earlier in life. Those were very painful losses,
Yes.
but they were nothing compared to the loss of my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I label the loss of my daughter as a great loss,
Mm-hmm.
title of my book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the reason I do that is because some losses are very central to who we are. They're what make us who we are. They are what we pin our hopes for the future on and what we focus on.
Mm-hmm.
The loss of a child is one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the loss of a spouse could qualify, whether through divorce or through death.
Yeah.
It could signal a very great loss, or really any kind of loss that takes away from us something that is central to our lives and makes life worth living for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel there was a trauma. I divorced, and I feel there was a trauma that I experienced that happened to me through that divorce in that relationship. And it's my question to you is, how can you study and go back and understand the trauma and why the trauma came with that relationship? Does that
Yes, I
sense?
understand completely what you're saying. I also went through a divorce, and I would label that as a great loss also. So I'll use the divorce and the loss of my daughter to illustrate. One of the things we can do is go back and really look at that relationship. We tend to see the relationship after we've had a loss in one direction or another, but not realistically. When I went through my divorce, my memories of my ex-husband were predominantly negative. I kind of forgot about all the good things. I just was remembering the bad things. With my daughter, my memories were predominantly positive. I'd forgotten all the difficult times, just the good times. So one of the paths to healing is to go back and realistically look at that relationship. What was good? What was bad? And also to look at what role did we play in making it one way or the other? And to look at whether we need to forgive others or ourselves for those events that took place in the past. It's pretty easy to forgive others. It's very hard to forgive ourselves.
Oh, yes. I've heard that. Yeah. Now, I have this question, and I don't want to take it out of sequence. Did you want to say anything else about your daughter's situation here?
Well, I think with my daughter, what happened was she was raped and robbed, left for dead. And it was so traumatic to us. I eventually ended up bringing her back home to live with me. She was so broken and so devastated. And it was years trying to get her back to some semblance of normalcy.
Yeah.
And even though I had a wonderful spiritual connection, a connection with my inner guidance, I lost it totally during that period because almost my total focus was on helping my daughter
Yeah.
recover.
Yeah.
I thought that she was on her path to full recovery. She was looking for jobs. She was talking about getting back into life fully again. But I decided to go and have the knee surgery I'd been putting off because she was doing so well.
Right.
While I was in the hospital, she was found dead in her bed.
Oh.
We didn't know what happened at first, but it turned out it was from a drug overdose.
So you had no idea that she was using drugs?
I knew that she was on prescription medications for her anxiety, and I had been alarmed at points that she was using too much of that. However, recently she'd kind of weaned off from those medications. Things were going so well. And no, even being a nurse and being so focused on her, I was not aware that she was using street drugs. I was very, very shocked.
Yeah. Oh, that was going to be my question, whether it was her medication or it was too much.
She was using
overdosed.
street drugs.
Yeah. Well, you have a question here called, what is great loss? And how do we determine when we have a loss that's great? Can you describe what that is?
Yes. I think what makes a loss a great loss is when we've been turning a lot of our focus on a person, a quest, or a thing. It's been our life. That's what we've focused our life on. That's what makes life worth living for us. That's how we plan our future. And when we lose that, it completely upends our existence because we've lost our anchor. And that is a great loss. There are other losses that are more peripheral and they're painful and they hurt, but we go on with our life focus. We go on with what makes our life worth living in that respect. So a great loss is when we lose something very central to our health and happiness.
So if we lose, I'm going to use the word trust. That's certainly one I lost through my divorce.
Yes, with a betrayal, we do lose that, yes.
Yeah. And so what kind of frustrates me is the amount of time it takes to get over that loss. It's like, okay, give me a book that says, how do I get rid of this? And there seems to be there's no book. I mean, I haven't read it yet, but what are the steps to help you get through a great loss like that?
Okay, good question. First of all, we all go through similar stages in loss. They've been written about extensively. There are literally thousands of books out there that talk about the early phases of grieving. A great loss, however, is more complicated. It lasts longer and it requires more to heal it. So after we've passed through those original losses that we encounter after losing something really important to us, then we need to begin the healing of the great loss. It's like we've gone through those stages, but we're left feeling lost, bewildered. The happiness has gone out of our life. So at that point, that's when we can begin the healing from great loss. And what we need to do, first of all, is anytime we experience a great loss, brings up every other loss that we've ever had in our lives for healing. So we're not only dealing with the current loss, but all the pain that we've kept stuffed down in the past. It all comes flaring up again, and we're left really in a very devastated state. It may look on the outside like we've come back to normal. Friends and family sort of go on their way now. They think, well, you've made it through it, but we haven't. We just feel dead inside. So at this point, what we need to do is we need to go back and examine those relationships or those things we've lost in the past and understand them more fully. What did we gain from those situations? What did we lose? What emotions do we need to handle? Do we need to offer forgiveness to others or to ourselves? And secondly, what we need to do is we need to take care of ourselves emotionally and physically and spiritually in an extreme manner. We need to take better care of ourselves than we ever have, because at this point, we're greatly in need of love and caring. And the best love and caring at this point comes from ourselves. The third thing that we need to do is we need to reestablish connection with our inner guidance. I have a lot of instructions in my book about connecting with inner guidance, but having worked with a lot of people on since the book has come out, I realized that one thing I didn't say in the book that I wish I would is often our higher self will speak to us, not in words, but in symbols. And so I think when we're trying to connect, if we try to get a picture in our mind of what we feel like right now. An example is when I did this, I had the feeling of I had fallen into a pit of despair and depression. And I was trying to get back on my feet, but it was slippery. So I had this feeling in my mind that I was trying to come up the hill, slippery slope, and I could get my feet under me. And when I got that symbol, it occurred to me, well, if I turn around and sit on the hillside, I can use my hands and pull myself up by my bottom. And as I did that, I got the symbol of little trees and leaves on the side, and suddenly I found something that I could grab onto and my standing position. Now that was all in symbols.
Is our intuition the voice that guides us through things like that?
Yes. Yes. And many people will actually hear things. And I always did.
Did you?
I heard many words. And so I wasn't expecting that symbols would be quite so important. But my experience in working with clients is that when a loss is very great and we're devastated, it's easier for our higher self to communicate in symbols than it is in words.
Symbols. Give me an example of a symbol.
A symbol would be like, for example, I talked about I fell down into a pit. The pit is the symbol. And so the way to do this is to check in with ourselves periodically during the day and say, how am I feeling right now? And then to say, if I was to draw what it looks like, how I'm feeling right now, what would I draw? What symbols would I use? And sometimes a picture says a lot more than words.
I haven't drawn forever. I think I put that on the shelf.
The other thing I wanted to say is when we have a loss, such as, your divorce, we also have secondary losses. We lose our identity as spouse. We lose our security, i.e. betrayal. And we lose dreams for the future of what that might have been. So there are secondary losses.
Your book I did order it today.
Good.
So I love the way it can just come so quickly through Kindle.
Yes.
So your book is the tool that can help a person that is struggling with the pain or the loss walk through and get through this loss.
Yes. Yes, there are many, many suggestions in there. Loss affects us not just psychologically, but also physically. And what I've seen in my clients,
Mhm.
what I knew for years as a nurse, that anyone who experiences a significant loss is at much greater danger of developing an illness
Mhm.
or a disease or having an accident in
Mhm.
that time period following the loss.
Mhm.
So that it's a time to be very careful, to take really good care of ourselves, to pay attention to any symptoms. There's even a syndrome called broken heart syndrome. It's an actual,
Really?
it comes from the pain of loss,
Uh-huh.
and it usually resolves itself. It's not overly dangerous, but it feels like it might be a heart attack. And we need to check and make sure that it's not. So
Mhm.
we need to
Mhm.
watch any
Mhm.
symptoms we feel. We need to pay attention to what we're doing when we're driving, when we're doing anything where we might have an accident. I do great loss workshops, and the example that I like to use is I had a man who had gone through a devastating divorce. He wasn't aware at all that his wife had been having an affair.
Mhm.
And one of the things that he did was he was out pacing on his deck, and he just wasn't paying attention, and he just paced off the steps and
Oh, no.
landed on the bottom and broke his arm and broke his ankle.
Mm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it can happen.
Yeah. Well, this book and the name of your book, you want to share with us the name of
The
your
name
book?
of the book is Healing from Great Loss, Facing Pain and Grief to Recover Your Authentic Self.
I love that you put authentic self in there. I like that. I mean, yes, getting rid of the pain and overcoming pain, but I just love that you took us all the way back to authentic self.
Yes.
Yeah, very important. So, but I can see this was the culmination, the creation that you did after your loss of your daughter to help you get through the pain. So I would say you probably put a lot of uh, your healing ideas in the book.
Yes. I described the process that I went through as an example. And since I lost a loved one, what I include in that book are signs to look for that our lost loved one is letting us know that they're nearby
Oh,
and that they're with us. And I also include instructions for communicating with your lost.
oh,
We don't die. Our loved one is not dead. They continue to live just in a different dimension. It's like they left the room we're in here on earth and went to a different room. And we can talk through the walls. We can communicate.
oh, so we can actually walk around our house talking to them. Would they hear us?
We can establish communication. And I do describe a beginning method in the book and then refer you to methods that will create more advanced communication. I went through a program for communicating with my daughter, and I was planning on it uses a recording and quiet time. And I had picked the place, the patio that she and I used to sit on and talk. So I'd picked the place, and I was going to do it later, but on that particular morning, I headed out the door to that patio. And the minute I walked out the door, this flood of information, ideas started coming into my mind. And I probably wouldn't have thought anything of it, but I heard the term hoodoo guru. And that is what my daughter jokingly called me
Oh,
because of my
how
spirit.
wonderful.
So I heard hoodoo guru, and it brought me up short. So I
Uh-huh.
sat down in one of the patio chairs and I said, Stephanie, is that you? And I got back a sassy retort, which was exactly like her. Well, who did you think it would be? And there followed the first conversation I had
Wow.
with my daughter.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. I bet you were in tears.
It was wonderful.
How can you grow from in spirituality after a loss? I mean, can we? I know we must move with understanding. The more we understand, the more we accept ourselves, the more forgiveness opens us up to me for spirituality. But is that the spirituality that you, I'm having trouble with that word, that you are speaking of there?
What I'm talking about here is there are certain inherent lessons in loss. We do learn to be more compassionate to others from loss. That's one. But it also provides an opportunity for us to uncover and learn the specific lessons that we planned to learn when we come to Earth.
Mhm.
So that is the big gift in loss. I explain in my book how I learned one of the main lessons I came here to learn this time. And I also provide a method for trying to find out what one of your lessons is that has been uncovered by your loss. I'll give you an example of my loss.
Okay.
One of the lessons that I had to learn was that I cannot help so much that I continue helping when the other person should be helping themselves.
Mm.
And I cannot continue helping so much that it totally drains myself.
Mhm.
I had learned that lesson pretty well in all areas of my life, except in my intimate relationships. And when my daughter went through the assault
Mhm.
that she experienced, I was so upset by that I just turned my total attention to her. And I helped her beyond the point that I should have let her start helping herself. And I became completely drained in the process.
Mhm.
So the loss and the analysis that I did afterwards helped me learn that lesson.
Mhm. Yes, we as mothers sometimes try to give too much.
Yes.
I think that's a pretty common thing for moms. So, yeah, letting them fly or retreat or
Yes.
heal from this. Well, I know that your book is going to help so many people move on and heal. Um, I'll give you a report on where I am when I finish
I would
my
love
book.
to hear that. Yeah.
For sure. Now, you are still at your life now is, other than doing these wonderful podcasts with promoting your book, you're still very busy. I once attended one of, I heard Dr.
Yes. Weiss.
speak at a workshop, but all I remember is he spoke. He was in Dallas at another large conference. So tell us a little bit about his work.
Dr. Weiss came up with past life regression.
Okay.
That is where his work focuses. And that is examining our past lives to see what we learned in those lives, what we left undone,
Mhm.
the karma that we picked up. Karma is not punishment. Karma is a way for us to learn and grow. If we didn't learn a lesson from a situation, then we'll come up with an experience in another lifetime that will allow us to go back and learn that lesson.
Oh, how do you know if you've learned it?
Well, you won't repeat the same mistakes again.
Time will tell, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you're presently you're presently working with, I'm sorry, I've lost my piece of paper here.
I offer past life regressions, life between lives sessions in my practice.
Can you explain a little bit about life between lives?
A past life regression is going back to one or more of the past lives that we've lived. But in between each of those lives, we go back to the spirit world, our true home, and we continue to learn and grow and have experiences there. So a life between life session takes you to the spirit world to learn about your role there, what you do, what you're learning. And you can ask questions about your current life or about our existence, or anything that you want to ask. A life between life session has a lot of similarities to a near-death experience, except it's much longer and much more involved. You can interact with your guides and wise beings. You can ask questions about, why am I having so much difficulty with this experience? What's going on with this? What attitude should I adopt to help me through this? Get guidance on your life, and you can achieve a much greater perspective on what your current life is all about.
Oh, that would be interesting. So right now, for you, those people listening that might want to, you do workshops. Tell us what you do in your business that people could take advantage of.
Well, first of all, my website is www.birminghamhypnosis.com. And that will explain both past life regression and life between lives sessions fully. The other thing that I do is offer weight loss workshops. They were offered in person before the pandemic, but they've now gone to online.
Oh, well, that pandemic, it really did change a lot of things, but some things I really kind of like, not having to get on a plane.
Yes.
Particularly with those fares going up all the time lately.
Yes. Before the pandemic occurred, I didn't think I could do a good job with the regressions online versus in person. But what I've learned is they're just as good or better for, I believe, a couple of reasons. One is the person doesn't have the hassle of trying to get somewhere to my office and maybe, getting lost and getting a little upset over it. Secondly, they're in their own home setting. They're much more comfortable. And the third thing is, no matter how I tried to keep it quiet at my office, there were other offices there, and there was often some noise or an interruption. In my home, I can make it so that it's absolutely quiet. So for those three reasons, sometimes the online version works even better than the in-person.
I have sort of mixed feelings because I'm a touchy person. I like to, to feel. And so sometimes I miss being able to actually lean over and tap your shoulder or reach for your hand. But there are disadvantages either way and advantages both ways, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we're just about finished, but not really. I think this has been very interesting for me, and I know for some of my listeners out there that have also had trauma, had loss, great losses. So I thank you so much for your work. I love what you're doing. And I'm so glad you transitioned through all of this for me and for the others that are listening to you today. What do you have, if I may ask you this, what is your plan now for your life as you continue to grow in your work? Is there a next step here?
I think that once we come through a loss, we have an opportunity, once we've achieved some healing, to look at our life from a new perspective and say, what would I really like to do with the rest of my days on earth? How would I like to use them? What do I want to give to the earth before I leave? What do I want to experience?
Mm-hmm.
How do I have more fun in my life?
Right.
Those
so
are
so in this work, you do some. I'm working with an going to do another book. She wrote The Artist's Way, and I know you know who I'm talking about.
yes,
Yes, and
Julia.
yes, Julia Cameron, and it's all about discovery. And I think for women particularly, I think women particularly, I do believe this, give so much throughout their married life and their friendships that they sometimes need that reawakening. And it sounds like with the growth through your book, you certainly provide that so that we can reclaim some of our gifts and some of our treasures that we've kind of let dormantly lay in one place and not be put to good use.
Absolutely. And I'd like to add that I think all of us have experienced many losses over the past several years, big and small. We're all suffering from loss, and we can all benefit from healing of that loss.
Yeah. So go to Amazon. I didn't notice if you sell your book on your website.
I don't.
Okay, so they would go to Amazon to get your book.
Yes, or Llewellyn or any.
Oh, Llewellyn, yes. Yeah. Well, all right. I want to say this has just been the most interesting session. I thank you so much for being on my podcast.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks. I'm going to talk just a few minutes to my listeners. So, dear friends out there, I always like to share with you an assignment, maybe a thought. We all know people that are suffering, that have had pain, that want to move on, open the doors, and heal from their sadness, their grief. So this is an opportunity for you to share this podcast with that friend. You may want to take advantage of the great treasures that Anne has shared with us today. So next week, when you come back, I hope that you will have shared this with one person, 2 people, 3 people, and that you have brought light to their day. So thank you for being with us today. I look forward to next week. See you there. All right. Bye for now.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.